All right. Hello and welcome, my friends. I think I hit all the buttons. All right. Okay. So, yeah, you should be hearing me live right here from Seattle. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Well, those who celebrated and those who don't, well, every day is a reason to give thanks for something because when we express the gratitude, then we get more of that in our life. So, if you want, yeah, whatever you want more in life, just gratitude is a great way to start. All right, so let's see who is on. So let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know if you can hear us okay. And we have some of our Learn Power BI members on the call. We have Steve. We have Robert. Hey, Robert, good to have you on. Robert would also be helping me today to run things a little bit. Keep an eye on the chat. And oh wait, I haven't let you guys all in. Dan is here. Byron is here. Good to have you guys on. And let's see who is joining us on YouTube. Robro says hi from Monument, Colorado. Matthias is here from from Germany. From Greeting. Tamden is here. Hey Tam. Good to see you here. Tam is here from California. Nicola is here from Jamaica. Hello there. And Maria is here from Germany. So the way this goes is that we gonna hang out here and answer questions. Now, what I'll say is that if you're like in a real hurry, it's like, oh, I want my question answered, then probably you should reach out to us for a one-on-one consulting. So this is not how it's gonna work. We're going to kind of have a great time here. Of course, answer some questions, but also you're going to find that you're going to be learning from all of the other questions too. So, yep, kind of enjoy that. Enjoy the process. And what else? We do have folks who had pre-submitted the questions. So I'm going to look at the board and see how things go. So let's do this. First of all, let's get a roll call of who is on the phone and from our Learn Power BI students and has submitted a question, has sent in a question. And I should find the chat window in a hurry. Where is that? Oh God, it's I can find it. All right, there we go. So, folks, if you are on the phone as a Learn Power BI student and you submitted a question, just put it in the chat window. And if you submitted a question online on YouTube, put that in the YouTube chat so that way I know. And we'll start with those. Let me bring up the Talk Power BI files. All right, so Steve and Joel have questions from the Learn Power BI. YouTube folks, let us know what questions, if you had submitted a question, just put in a comment there. All right, looks like Dan has a question too. Great, so let's start lining this up. Today is November 27th, how excited. And oh, that's weird. Okay, I'll fix that later. All right, so who do we have here? We have Steve, we have Joel, and we have Dan from the Learn Power BI family. I'm not hearing anything from YouTube, folks. So let me see what's going on. All right, hopefully, well, you guys will chime in. Okay, cool. So I see some people are asking questions. I just want to make sure we kind of respect the process. We'll definitely get to all questions, or as many as we can. But if you had submitted a question in this list, let's see how many came in. We have 31 questions came in. So yeah, if you did submit that, then let me know. I don't know. Doing freelance work, transitioning from employee. I think that's leftover from last time. All right, so let's see. Steve, go ahead and unmute yourself. Why posing that as a question? Unmute. Okay, let's see if that works.
Okay.
All right. Hey, yeah, awesome.
All right.
And yeah, I don't know. I think you got your webcam on too. That's great.
Yeah, I finally brought my webcam home and my microphone from work, so I don't have to use my iPad anymore. That's a good thing.
Yeah. All right. So we got Steve on here. That's awesome. Steve, let's see. Okay, so let me just put this in. Power BI versus Access for simple reporting. Great. Put that there. And this is Steve Ross. All right, folks, so we have that, and let's kick it off here. What is the time? All right, so let me see what you have, Steve, for us. So question detail: my company generates daily reports summarizing the previous day's sales activity. A CSV file is available, and the information in that file is appended to historical data. This work is currently done in Microsoft Access. The person doing this work may retire, and yeah, I wonder if this application would be suited for Power BI. Ah, it's interesting. Generates daily reports.
So there's an example there in the
okay.
in that drive, and
oh, should I request access? PowerBIPro. Oh shoot. Yeah. Okay.
It's just a PDF, very simple report.
Okay. It seems I had to request access, so I did that. But
Really?
but yeah, so let's see. So what we got here? So we got access, daily reporting. Is it suited for Power BI or database applications? Well, I can give you like a simple answer. So back in the day, I was in India, and yeah, I mean, I was doing my undergrad in computer science, but frankly, the college computer education, it wasn't very up to date. I mean, we learned things like COBOL and all that stuff. Now, of course, we did get grounding in algorithms and all that stuff. But there was an institution called NIIT. It was extremely popular, and almost everybody that I knew was doing some sort of a computer course there. Yeah, then it was novel. Of course, now computer institutes, online training is everywhere. Right? So, so I remember designing like database application, and all these concepts of front end, back end. I never ended up as a programmer. Ended up on the business side, and that's what I did all my life. But back in school, they would do kind of the front end, and the back end would be a database, and the front end would be UI, and and I think the classic example that we did was a video rental, which of course now, like my kids, they have never walked into a video rental store. But so we had these scenarios where people came in, and you got a new movie. How do you enter into that system? Oh, now somebody's at your checkout desk and he wants to check out this movie. How do you kind of pull up their customer record? So that, in my mind, when you say database application, I get transported right back to that. Is Power BI, could you use Power BI for that? You probably could. Not by itself, but with things like Power Apps, right? But it would probably be a very bad idea. I mean, you could do it, but yeah, I don't think it's meant for that. So so for database application, yeah, you could use it. Probably not a good idea. But what you're describing didn't sound to me like a database application. It seems like reporting. I mean, when I'm reading the usage, I'm just reading kind of reporting, daily reporting. So I think Power BI would be the perfect for things. Tell me if you have any reservation, like if you do see things which like, oh yeah, but Avi, this thing is kind of off.
Not really. Just the when I looked at it, uh, I, I I could see. Let's just say you have a historical, you have a database that's up to date. It's as of yesterday. So I get a new file. That
Mm-hmm.
file gets worked into the historical data. It updates everything by one day, and it just in Access. These are some of the pros and cons. In Access, the data sits in an Access file structure
Yeah.
as opposed to one text file for each day. And then what tends to happen in Power BI, unless there's other ways you can go about it, I guess, but it takes a little while to load uh, the data,
Yeah.
and then also, you're going to do some calculations within there. It's you're getting some numbers, and then taking a percentage for say you're dealing with a commission, and you have to split it up amongst, say, 10 different categories and different percentages.
Yeah.
uh, it seems to work in Power BI using DAX. I just didn't want to get into the situation. I've seen people that use spreadsheets for everything, and because they know
Yeah.
how to use the spreadsheets, and
Yeah.
everything is spreadsheet appropriate. So, and I know that's not the case. So I wanted to see, am I going down a wrong path by, um, because I know a little Power BI, a little DAX. I really
Yeah.
don't know Access. So, I prefer not to go down that path if I didn't have to. I don't know if I'm making any sense or not, but
Yeah. No, no, that makes sense. So that's a good point, though. I'll take a little bit of a detour here, and we have maybe mentioned the word kind of Excel hell, and frankly, that's not Excel's fault. Excel is just a tool, right? So it's how you kind of end up using it,
right.
and uh, you probably heard me say this. Your strengths are your weaknesses are your strengths, and Excel, its strength is definitely its weakness as well. Its strength is that it's an ultimately flexible tool, but what that ends up meaning is that people use it in ultimately flexible ways, which often means that it's kind of a death by a thousand cuts, right? So you can
Yeah.
end up there, and Steve is exactly right that there is,
Well,
I mean, Power BI is also a tool. There's I know organizations who end up in a version of that with Power BI. They're like Power BI things flying around everywhere. So the tool itself wouldn't give you, the
well, I'll give
salvation
you an
necessarily
example
you're
of
looking for.
Excel hell.
Yeah.
We had a guy who would, this is back in the Lotus 123 days, but to have a month's worth of data, he would have 31 tabs, and they would have to all the cells would have to line up so that you could do a
Oh boy.
sum across all of the days of a month and get a total. Now that was a nightmare.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, man, really, I shiver sometimes when I really remember the kind of things that I did and had to do. And man,
Yeah.
I was good at it, but that didn't save me. I mean, I was pretty good. I mean, frankly, I was kind of afraid of array formulas. That was kind of my extent. But VBA, boy, I mean, I had, yeah, all the way. Yeah, I mean, but it was hard. You would break something, and there were so many scenarios where I didn't have to touch anything and it would break because something in the source broke,
Yeah.
and it would break in ways you couldn't detect it, and then a month later you realize that, man, the report that I shown management, it was incorrect, or the report that I spent kind of last night staying up till 2 o'clock in the night, and I sent it in the morning thinking it's done. It had a mistake. Yeah, it was just crazy stuff. So I definitely don't want to go back to that. So Power BI hell, you can end up there. You can end up and I see organizations which are like, oh yeah, there's Power BI flying around everywhere. Everything is a Power BI thing, and they're like 1,000 different versions of that. That's not the way to go. But companies can end up that way. We're going to table that discussion a little bit. We'll come back to Access and Power BI. So think about this, right? I mean, the things that I heard were, what was the core thing? I mean, so let's talk about what's the core requirement. You need to kind of load the data, connect the data, and store it in a structure, and you have to define calculations, and then you have to build some, report visualizations. Yeah, but Steve, I would say that I don't know. I mean, you seem to be talking about it as the pros and cons, like Power BI takes time to load the data, but I
Yeah.
don't get it.
That's
I
no
mean,
big
you have to
deal.
load the data in both systems, right? I mean, no
Yeah.
system access
Yeah.
can't get around any of these.
Yeah. That's not an
Yeah,
impediment at all, the loading of the data,
yeah.
because
Yeah, great, great. So
yeah.
I'll say the way I see it, that from the usage scenario that you're describing, it seems it seems like bread and butter for Power BI, right? It seems like, yep, that's exactly the scenario where you're pulling in some data, you're not kind of modifying it or storing it back. That's when I start thinking, oh, I mean, database application. And again, I mean, you can, in edge cases, if you just need a little bit of that, maybe you can do something with Power Apps and stuff. But this seems kind of bread and butter, right? Load the data, stored in a structure, so Access has its structure. Well, Power BI has its own structure, and it's far better, right? I mean, it's the compression wise and speed wise, and how it loads it in memory, which is a modern system, right? I mean, memory used to be very limited resource, but not
Hmm.
so anymore, right? I mean, we can load like hundreds of millions of rows of data set, and that can be kept in memory thanks to this modern structure. So that's awesome. Calculations, again, man, I love DAX. If you have the model right, the structure right, then DAX is usually straightforward. And even the complex stuff, the best part about what I like is you just solve it once. You define a DAX formula, and then you can slice and dice it any which way you want. So many advantages.
True.
And of course, report visualization, that's like out of the park. So I think on every single
Yeah.
point, I think Power BI wins. Because, boy, I
I
mean,
think
yeah.
when you're talking about a fairly simple calculations, I mean, the DAX is not very complicated,
Yeah.
and it only
Yeah.
gets complicated when you use it as a BI
Yeah.
tool.
That's the goal, isn't it? Well,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
well, it is. That's what I'm saying. It's a BI tool.
Yeah.
In this application, it's really just reporting. You're not
Oh, I see
really
what you're saying. Well, that
you're not
depends. Like, I mean, calculating commissions depends what kind of logic your company is using. It could be if it's a very convoluted logic. So there are two things here, right? Actually, this is a good discussion, man. I'm enjoying it, right? So I'll share a kind of a really quick story. So I was working for a finance team within Microsoft, and we had been working for a while, and I had this. So one day I walk up to the manager who I was working with, and I was I apologized to him, and I said, I'm sorry that this has become so complicated. Because yeah, we've been working for a while and kind of layer upon layer, and of course BI is kind of peeling the onion. So we added this and added that and added this and added that, and it started off easy. Power BI always starts off easy, right? And then it got complicated, and then man, it was a bit heavy. I mean, to make a change, I'd have to think about it. I'd have to be careful. I'd have to think about how it would impact the rest of the system. It was complicated enough. So I walked into his room and I said, I'm so sorry. You know, this has ended up being so complicated, and yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's you know, this is unusual. I mean, usually Power BI things become much easier. And he said, Avi, you have nothing to apologize for. And he said something so beautiful. He said, your model is reflecting the complexity of the system. And I was like, whoa. So think about it. If you have a really, really convoluted and complex system for calculating commissions, which I'm not saying you guys do, but imagine somebody who did, well,
It's not as
yeah,
simple as you
then,
think.
man, I mean, Power BI will have to reflect that. So it's not going to be a walk in the park, right? So that is one aspect. And then there's the other aspect. Maybe I'll have three. Another aspect is, of course, we've all experienced that, right? I mean, it's that kind of riding the bicycle thing, right? I mean, unless you figure it out, it's hard, right? So sometimes it takes some doing, and so that's maybe one aspect. The third is, of course, which is good. So that layer, if it's feeling like you have to, oh, I had to figure it out for a while. Man, I mean, I remember the hardest problem that I solved. It took me a month. It was crazy. I mean, right? I mean, it took me a month to solve it. So we've all been through that, and of course, I mean, you can get help and so forth, and if you apply the core concepts. And the third approach is what I frankly don't like, or I shouldn't say don't like, but I think is very avoidable, which is what I see people where they go on a song and a prayer. I think is that the phrase, right? I mean, they say, "Oh, I write my DAX measure and I cross my fingers that it works," right? I mean, they're just throwing darts in the dark, and yeah, that's not a great way to go. So I think even if it's kind of challenging, you can definitely figure it out step by step.
Well, yeah, and the way I see it with Power BI, see, I don't know too much about Access, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't even
Yeah.
know how to do these calculations in Access. I'm sure I could learn it, but
Yeah,
um,
you're not missing much, right?
and
And
it
again, people talk to me about Access and Power BI, and I just say, I mean, look at the future where these things are headed, and you can
sure,
judge it by how much, frankly, media time or PR time these tools get from
yeah,
Microsoft. When was the last time somebody showed an Access demo at one of the big
yeah,
Satya pulled out Access? Right?
never,
Nothing,
yeah.
And frankly, I mean, if you hear the stories, I mean, it's all about where are the developers kind of focused on, and yeah, they're not adding
So
members in the Access team.
yeah,
So Power BI is definitely the
so
future.
it's
I
not
have no idea.
inappropriate to use it.
Yeah, yeah. No, for this one, it's seeming in fact like bread and butter.
Yeah.
Like
And
this
it
is what it was
seems like,
designed for.
like at this level that we just discussed today, that's all well and good. You just, you generate your reports, simple reports, and then you can use that and expand on it to do sort of BI type of activity, because you'll have it.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to this point, Power BI Hell kind of yeah, there's a bit of a balance between IT and business, and and of course, I often throw IT under the bus, which I think they deserve because God, they for the past so many years, I mean, we were treated so bad, the business users, right? I mean, the business intelligence was locked away in this ivory tower, and business users would go there with a begging bowl, say, "Hey, can I have this report?" I'm like, "Oh, come back in 3 months, and maybe you'll have it, maybe you won't," right? I mean,
Yeah.
if it makes the cut line, I mean, that was BS, right? I mean, business intelligence belongs to the business. And we got by and we scrabbled and we would export data and put it in Excel. IT can't act that way anymore. Now, the funny thing is that I don't think IT is done or gone. It's all self-service BI. No, that's BS as well. In fact, IT's role is even more crucial. So, yeah, I mean, we not only need them, we need them even more. But of course, we need them to be doing different things. So I think there is a little bit of a balance here. Whereas an IT, when I say IT, some kind of central authority which is kind of overseeing BI, could be in IT, doesn't have to be in IT, right? But that's central authority versus business users kind of doing the whole thing. So yeah, and yeah, as far as business users are concerned, I think they should feel empowered to go
Yeah.
tinker, create this, create that. Something works, keep it for a month, keep it for a year, up to you. And IT kind of plays that yeah, kind of the
Yeah.
benevolent force helping, empowering business users. So yeah, their role is different, but yeah, more crucial. Cool,
Yeah.
awesome.
So anyway, so this guy, just a little
Hmm.
backstory. He's just developed this access thing over 10 years. You know, he's
Wow.
not an IT guy. He just, and
Yep.
everything is, you know, he did it the
Yeah.
way he figured it out how to do it. So for
Yeah.
someone to step in and try to continue that would be a nightmare.
Yeah. I'll say maybe if you can do it piece at a time. I mean,
Yeah.
try not to do the whole thing
Oh
one
yeah.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've started something that's what I had uploaded, but it kind of replicates
Yeah.
came
Great.
close. It comes close, and you know the numbers all match up, and also that's good.
Great. Sounds good.
So,
All
okay,
right.
well that's good. Then
Yep.
I'll
You're on a good
continue
track there.
on.
Great. Great. Awesome. So hey,
Thank you.
Robert, I'm gonna check in with you. Um, hey, Robert, did we have more folks? Somebody on YouTube who said they had submitted a question. You can unmute yourself if you like.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
There's Nicola Senior saying that how do I get chart showing current year, prior year, and variance?
Hold on,
Should
hold
I
on.
say
So,
send? Well,
anybody said that they had submitted their question, like earlier? Anybody said anything like that?
no, no,
No.
no.
Okay.
Only somebody who said that there's somebody who they had presented in the last QA,
Oh.
and it wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't. Maybe we can get that. Who was that? Oh, oh, I see. Kirk is here as well. Robert, did we lose you? We don't have audio from you, mate. Oh, all right. So yeah, Kirk is on as well. Great. Switch to Zoom. Great. Kirk is here. Um, so Steve, Joel, Dan, Kirk, we have all of you. Oh, okay. Great, great, great. So we are getting some pre-submitted. Let's see. I'm gonna prioritize those. Um, so we have Evan, Matthias, and Branislav. Cool. So Robert, I'll say the folks who did not pre-submit but are asking questions, maybe hold on to them, and we'll check
Okay,
in. We'll check in. Yeah, maybe keep a
okay,
list on your side.
okay. So how should I share the list?
I'll ask for you again. Keep a
Okay,
note better
okay,
than that.
great.
All right, all
Okay.
right, all right, folks. Great. So let's take one from YouTube. Let's see if we can find Evan. Oh, so this one we were answering. Okay, cool. We'll call it good. And let's find Evan here. And folks, if you didn't pre-submit, that's all good. We'll get to your question, but again, we kind of prioritized this folks who did pre-submit and are here. So if you didn't pre-submit, you're asking questions. Robert is going to try his best to keep track of that, and of course, well, yeah, just enjoy the these questions while you wait. Oh, all right. So let's see. In-state overtime. That looks like an interesting question. Look at us. All right, let's see. Mm-mm-mm. Oops. All right, let's go here. So I work with electric vehicles, and let me see if I can open the file. Okay, I can open this one, which is good. I work with electric vehicles and vehicle charging, and we have data sets that give us the time car plugs into a charger, the power drawn as it is charging, the time the car stops charging. Oh, so excited. Oh God, hey, so just a quote that was on the intro slides, right? So, um, how do you get really good at Power BI? You gotta get real practice, and it starts with real data. But you also need a real client that you can go back and forth with, right? So, well, we at least have real data here, and I guess Evan is my client for now. So we'll see. If I have a set of, say, 30 chargers, I want to be able to plot hourly how many chargers are being used. Oh, I love this pattern. Taking this step further, I would like to plot how much power is being drawn at a given moment. I think if you can solve one, you can solve the other. You're gonna follow the same pattern. I can see a more complex way of doing this by creating a new table with each hour of the day. Oh gosh, ouch. I don't think you want to do that. And doing some function, look at the start and stop times. Or I don't say, but I feel like there's a much easier solution. Yeah. So he is thinking along the right track. He's like, maybe I can solve it with a small data set, but I have another data set of thousands of these stations. And even if you didn't, sometimes I think about like the elegance of a solution. And oh gosh, what was I watching which talked about elegance? Oh, I can't remember now. But oh God, it's driving me nuts now. Elegance. It was so counterintuitive. Like they were talking about like science and really like kind of hard stuff, and then said, "Oh, but you choose the elegant solution." Oh, anyway, so in Power BI, there is something to be said about choosing an elegant solution. And yeah, so sometimes I look at a problem and how I can solve it, and I ask, "Hey, is it elegant?" And I don't know, of course, how do you define elegance? Well, I don't know. Well, many ways, I'm sure. But sometimes I think that, hey, would this work in other scenarios, right? I mean, and yeah, if it is, then if it is going to work, then that's good. That's an elegant solution, right? It's going to be kind of graceful under all situations, graceful under fire. And if it breaks down as soon as something changes, then that's not a very elegant solution. So cool. So let's. What I'm gonna say is for this one, I think I can point you. I can speed things up. So this is a classic pattern with a start and stop date or start and stop time. So it's a classic pattern, and you see it once you kind of realize it, get it, that it's a pattern, then you would see it everywhere, like a start date, stop date. And pretty much every kind of industry has some version of that, or industry or vertical you're in. For example, if it's kind of a warehouse, right, it could be the time the truck left and it came back, something like that, right? It was in transit. Employees, HR, of course, start date, end date, things like that. In fact, that's the example that I use in here inside my course. So the start date and end date, and you want to calculate who are active. And of course, once you have that, then you can calculate the other things as well. So let's see. So there are actually 3 solutions. One with no active relationships, one with an active relationship. This is actually makes it harder to have an active relationship between between the tables. And then there is simple DAX. Ooh. I at least want to hand you one. Let me see which one is a good example. Come on. I just want to skip to the... Where is my DAX formula? Oh, okay. Oh, well, let's try this one. This one is simpler to understand, maybe. Although you're going to have a few curveballs. I think that's probably the simple pattern. All right, so what I'm saying is, so imagine employee had the start date and end date, and then I had a date range selected. What does that mean by selected? Well, that could mean that I'm plotting it on a graph. I've selected it using a slicer. Generally, you're plotting it on a graph, and of course, if you're plotting it on a graph, you can show it in a table, right? Yeah, right. So that's coming in from there. Let me put this kind of here, and let me see. Man, I mean, I'll say that's the challenge video. Like, I'm trying to find like screenshots for you which would make sense. There we go, something like this. So obviously you're going to plot something on a graph. In this case, it's months, right? So it's saying, and I don't know why they're not in order. Ignore that. But imagine, so this has July 2010, February 2011. So this is obviously sending in the incoming filter context. And that's how DAX works, right? It works in those 4 steps. ICAN. I can, that means you can too. You can understand DAX. So ICAN, and I stands for incoming filter context. So this is going to send in the incoming filter context. It's going to say the start date is like January 1, 2013 to January 31. So that's where it's getting max and min date. I shouldn't say start date. Max and min date, the range that's coming from the filter context. And then what we say is that I'm going to go to my employee table. And again, the pattern is the same, right? In your case, it's not employee start date, stop date. It's a car charging start time, stop time. So you go in there and you say, I want to filter the table, in this case, employee table. And I want to, and because I want to capture things between min date and max date, then I'll have to say that, well, I want to make sure that the max date is not oh God. It's sorry, I think I have a visual in the video which I can't find the exact location, but it explains why this formula works. It's simpler than it looks here. Again, if you look at it visually, actually let me see if I can try it. So imagine your max date and min date are here, these boundaries. So you want to capture things between this, right? Now, let's see here, if the start date is beyond max date, this region, it's not going to work. And that's why we exclude that. So we say, no, the start date cannot be beyond the max date. That's that one. And then we say, and if the end date is before the min date, that's not good either. And that's what we're excluding here, right? So that's the logic. Hopefully that makes sense. And so that's it. So that's it. Now, of course, the curveball for Evan is what? He's got time. Not just a calendar table, but a time. But the same logic could be applied. Now, of course, how do you handle time in Power BI. Now, the funny thing is that what Power BI generally people say, like time intelligence and any of the time intelligence functions, if you think about it, they're not time intelligence functions. I don't know if there's one time intelligence functions in Power BI. Maybe there is. I just have never used it, but they're all date intelligence functions. You know, dates YTD, dates MTD, same period last year. All of those, they have nothing to do with time as such. Well, I mean, date is time, I guess, but you know what I'm saying, right? So generally, if you have date, which is January 1, 2020, and you also have the time component, which is on January 1, 2020, you know, 10:30 a.m., or maybe it's more precise, can we have seconds and something like that, 23. You need a calendar lookup table, and of course, you know, why settle for any calendar lookup table when you can have the ultimate calendar? So make sure you get that from inside my course or on my YouTube channel. It's available in both places. Time has to be its own lookup table. So, and this is only going to have time in there. It's not going to have a date. And you would have, so you would just have to add the logic for time as well. Similar to how we check for date, start date, min date, you would check the time. Cool. So I wouldn't quite solve it, but hopefully that gives you enough kind of clues to move forward with. All right, but yeah. So, and again, as I said, guys, this start date, end date, this is a lovely pattern. And of course, in the course, I have 3 solutions. I think I thought of a 4th one. Oh yeah, that I think is the one that Evan was suggesting, which I call blowing up the table, which is you create a kind of a row for every hour if you want to show hourly data. That is actually useful in some cases, disastrous in many other cases, but useful in some. So I do plan to go back and cover that. Cool. So hopefully that helped. Let's switch back to our students. And so we got Steve. Let's put a good check mark here or something. So we covered Steve. Joel, let's see. Yeah, you're still on. Cool. So I'm going to queue you up. Great. Good to have you on. Let's see if I can find your question.
So my question's pretty simple, and I rushed a little bit typing it in. So basically, I have a very simple dashboard, and I didn't post it in there because it's got some company stuff on there, but I set a bookmark, but it's actually a link to a web URL that actually launches a new tab within the dashboard to allow them to look at multiple tabs at the same time if they so choose. For certain users, when that new tab launches using that web URL, it redirects to a group/me and doesn't end up going to the other page. It takes them back to where they were before.
Oh boy. So I'll say I'm a little nervous because you're saying for some users.
For some, it works fine for me.
Yeah.
Works fine for some other developers. But I have a few users that you can see that redirects rather than going to group / and then all of the keys, it redirects to what's the top, which is group /me /reports.
I really can't think of anything right now. I mean, that's bizarre for sure.
And Avi, if you want to take it and think about it and send me something later, if you come up to it, that's great. I'm just grasping at straws here why is it not working for some users?
Of course, the first thing that I would think is that this is bizarre enough that I think it's worth it to escalate to Microsoft support.
Okay.
I would definitely reach out to them. And I want to hear from folks on YouTube and here in the chat as well. What's your experience been with Power BI support? It used to be really easy to access and awesome for paid users, which is what $10 a month, which was nothing. Even if you asked one support question in a year, it was worth it. Just right if you and of course right. So So it was awesome, but now when I try to contact the pro support, it has this weird thing in there. It says, oh, you have to be like a tenant admin to create a ticket, which is so silly. What that that just doesn't make sense. That's no way to treat customers, I say. But am I kind of hallucinating? Or is that really what's happening? Can you not open a support ticket? I have a feeling that you can. They are just making it harder for you to create a support ticket. So we'd love to hear what you guys have seen and experienced, and I'll see if I can pull up that what am I talking about on here. Oh well. I say, let's see who was the next one on our list. Yeah, so this is the link, and it was such a cool link. I would share it to everybody. I would say, hey, if you have any trouble, then go here. But and earlier you could get on this page and open a support ticket. I've done that, and those guys were amazing. They were so communicative, and yeah, when I used it, it was awesome. But now I go here, I see this. And, well, yeah, that's just kind of weird. And again, I feel like, I don't know, is that, well, I guess there is this one, but that just goes on to a forum, I think, report an issue, and then it's by voting. So if you are experiencing something unique, well, it's impossible to get attention. Yeah, so Joel, I guess so yeah, I'm not too happy about the change. I think it's weird. And again, I feel like, so guys, I love Microsoft. I love the Power BI team. But it just feels like a part of Microsoft is still stuck in the old age. And right, so if you think about it, what's the identity of Power BI? Oh, Microsoft. Microsoft is a B2B company, business to business, right? They never interface directly with clients, right? I mean, they had partners to build the hardware. They had partners to sell everything. Even now, Power BI, I mean, it's just, how hard is it to buy an Office license? I'll tell you, it's plenty hard, and I'm not the only one. People talk about you need a PhD to figure out the licensing scheme integrated with, right? So it's in a lot of ways, it's still shockingly a B2B company where they don't, right? I mean, B2C, they right? And I hope that it was changing, right? I mean, and of course they saw what Apple did. I mean, they transformed the industry. I mean, they put consumer first and took over the mobile market. Everybody was like, kind of catering to these corporates and office folks, and people were being handed out BlackBerries, right, by their offices. My office gave me my BlackBerry. But then the B2C revolution came, and that changed everything, or maybe not everything. Microsoft, again, I mean, it feels like this dual identity. I think they had this foray where they went into this B2C and they tried to do the Surface thing, and all that stuff, and that was feeling very B2B. I think Power BI definitely started with those ethos. Again, I could go in as a user and reach out to the support team. And now I can't, apparently. And I'm telling you, man, I use at least 50 different online services, probably more. It's crazy. When I get my bill at the month end, I'm like, why am I paying for this stuff? It's crazy, right? But But hey, once I stepped out of Microsoft, I don't know, I stepped into this new land. I was like, whoa, there's stuff outside of Microsoft, and it's awesome, and I want to use it. And yeah, it's all a service now, and I pay monthly for it. But there's not a single company out there which can get away with acting like this, which would even think of acting like this, put a wall between them and the users. And yeah, anyway, so again, all the love for Microsoft Power BI team. I mean, every single penny that I've earned for the last many, many years is all thanks to you. So I'm eternally thankful. But I'm still puzzled by this. To me, it feels like an identity crisis, right? I mean, I think they try to kind of get hip. Oh, the Microsoft stores, which are being closed everywhere, right? I mean, they try to get hip and kind of with the customer. But I don't know what's happening now, right? I mean, has it been abandoned? I don't know, guys. And I don't know. I don't know what's the best thing. Maybe this is good. I mean, of course, they've done well so far. I know Power BI is like smoking hot. It's of course it's piggybacking on Office, so there's nothing that can stop it. The number one reason, can you guess the number one reason that I get for when I talk to companies and clients and students and who are starting out with Power BI? The number one reason is that, we already had licenses. And of course, yeah, that's an unstoppable force, right? So it's piggybacking on off of Office. So yeah, good things all the way around. So yeah, maybe who am I to kind of question the strategy? I'm sure there are smarter folks out there, but I don't know. I always am for the underdog, right? The small guy, that underdog, the small guy, the small business. And here's what I found. So by the way, guys, we're taking a bit of a detour here, but I've gone through a lot of my own identity crises, and the thing is, so I tried to, in our program, by the way, that one is opening in January 2021. So our premier program for training Power BI consultants, that one is January 2021. And the step one that we asked them to do is to define their niche, define the focus, define the niche. And I've tried to do the same. And initially, what I did was, I don't know if some of you guys might remember, that I changed my branding and tagline and all that stuff a little bit. And I said, I'm going to focus on the small business. Yeah, that's where it's at. Those are the ones who need help. But it was a bust. It was a bad idea. Didn't work, wasn't great, didn't align with me. That's why it was bad. Not because serving small business is bad in any way, but it was a bad idea because it didn't align with me. And here's why. Because I realized that I've always been serving kind of the underdog, right? That small, scrappy business team. Sometimes it's just one person, right? One person, a small team was just kind of getting by, kind of Excel and all that stuff. And I just wanted to make their life easier. But those small, scrappy teams often existed in very large companies. NASA comes to mind, right? I mean, I worked with a team in NASA, and dude, it's NASA, right? I mean, I was like, whoa, right? I mean, I remember being there. This was, of course, some years back, no COVID there. So I was on site, and I was like freaking out. Like, I can't believe I'm here. I'll share a quick joke. So I'm up there. I was doing training, a bit of consulting, and I'm up there in the classroom, and I started the class, and I said, guys, this is so awesome. This is the closest I'm going to be to be a rocket scientist. Yeah, right? So this is the closest I'm going to be to, I'm going to get to be a rocket scientist. And the guy in the front, he says, yeah, Avi, me too, us too. Because this was a finance team, so yeah, I mean, they were not getting any closer to becoming rocket scientists. But anyway, so small, scrappy teams, the underdog exists everywhere, and man, my heart bleeds for them. Those are the ones I want to help. So yeah, man, I mean, so that part kind of irks me, right? It's not about kind of B2B, B2C, but what about that scrappy team? And now, again, we talked about locking up business intelligence in an ivory tower. It's the same thing. Now I gotta go to my I gotta find my. I mean, in most organizations, people wouldn't even know like who's that, what's a tenant. And again, right? I mean, sometimes this technology really trips me up. Those of you who have been following me on LinkedIn have been experiencing my blues with Microsoft Teams. And man, before you set up Teams, you have to set up the tenant. And I'm like, God, I can't imagine Slack working this way. All right, I think I've gone on enough of a rant. but hey, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm always, what I can say is, guys, if you feel like the scrappy underdog, I'm always going to be in your corner. Always, always, always. That's my promise. All right, cool. Let's see if we can pick up another question. So I think this one was a really quick one. So let's see. Well, Joel, I'll put a question mark. I didn't do much. Oh, Joel, the only idea I had was God, where's my idea? The only idea I had was that, and I don't know, I have no idea it's going to work or not, right? That some users are getting redirected to, I don't know, maybe there's something about redirection. So what if you sent them to a link not directly linked to this? You link it to something you can control, right?
Yeah,
So,
I can try that.
yeah, so I mean, of course, you can just try creating a bit.ly link, and who knows, right? And again, I have no idea why it's not working. So maybe a bit.ly link. So you would send them to bit.ly, and then bit.ly would direct them somewhere. So maybe that'll take away control from whatever's going on in here.
Okay, thanks.
Or yeah, of course, you know, if you have, something like that, or if you have a own domain name, yeah. All right, so we couldn't really help here, but perfect. So let's see. Oh wow, so people don't like my rant. Sorry guys, this is me. I'll go and rant sometimes. All right, so yeah, again, for me, yeah, we'll get to your questions. So folks, if you're in a hurry to answer and get your question answered, I'll say Hyras, right? I wouldn't go into any stories. No stories, I promise. But this one, I'm here to have fun. All right, hope that's cool. If not, that's okay too. You know, that's the beauty, joy of internet. Yeah, you can always click the off button. All right, so Kirk and Samuel did say never used Microsoft support, never had any luck. Ninke said the same thing. Need to be an admin. Oh yeah. All right. Cool. Let's go to Dan. Dan, go ahead and try to unmute yourself.
Hey, Avi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. All right, let's see.
I think my question is going to be pretty easy, but I'll give you a little bit of background on it. So I have a really complex measure.
So actually, hold on. So this is you, right? Viewing results of a DAX table function?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. All right. So hold on. Let me kind of cue it up here.
So essentially, I have a really complex measure that calls other measures that call other measures from a code reuse perspective. But I don't want to really get into the complexity of the measure. At the end of the measure, there's a calculate table, which comes up with a single column that filters some different records. And then I do a return a count rows of that table or that variable, which is that table and that other function.
Yeah.
I've tested this with small data sets, and I believe it works perfectly. Of course, that's me. But now when I'm working with customers and they have large data sets and my numbers don't match theirs, because they do stuff a little bit differently, they want to see the results of that so they can validate it. So I want to figure out, how do I output the results of that calculate table so I can just see that single column of subscriber numbers? And I'm hoping it's an easy question.
Yeah. Well, let's
And it doesn't have to be in Power BI. I don't care how I get it. I just want to be able to see them. It doesn't have to be in a chart. I don't care if it's in how I do it, as long as I can see that list. I got to think there must be a way to do that. I just haven't been able to find it looking through everybody's stuff.
All right, so so let's ignore the complex DAX measure.
Yep.
Right? Let's say you have a DAX measure. And let's say I'm showing sales. That's my measure.
Okay.
And I'm showing overall sales, and of course I could show it by, total, for current year. Right? I can show it many different ways. Last year. And then I want to see detail. What do I do? So think AdventureWorks. I have all those tables, and I want to see it by customer, let's say. What do I do?
So think about it. There's a variable that does calculate table that then has
No. So
filter
this
it.
one is simple. This one is a simple measure. So I'm going to exclude, right? This one is just sales, right? And hey, it's just the sum of sales amount, right? Again, AdventureWorks, the same thing we do in class.
And but it's a table function that I need to be able to look at. So the measure can be really simple as long as I have a way to view the results of a table function, not just a count, but the detailed results.
Well, so usually you see detail just by dragging something from the lookup table, and I want to see sales by this customer, by this stat, right? So,
but it's not one number. It's 500 or 1,000 records that come back in the table.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay, got it. So
yeah, it's not the sum of them I want to see. I want to see here's all the customers that potentially make up that list of sales.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're on the same page for the simple route, and I would say that you have some complexity on your side, which we'll have to figure out. But so let's say, how would I do this? Let's try. Let's see if you have a customer count.
And maybe you can think of some of your functions that are already out there, where you're doing here is a list of customers that have revenue. And then you're doing a calculation on that. How do I get that list? If you're doing some sort of a filter.
Yeah.
And then how do I get the list that goes into that filter? That filter produces, not just the sum of the list.
Yeah. That okay. Cool. I think yeah, we're getting something here. So let's see. Let me put. So this is the count of customers who are purchasing, and I'm gonna put here by month year. Oh, great. Month year. Let me see if it's sorted.
So if I understand, this is a count of customers by month year. So it's what are the specific customers that are in that count? The list of those customers.
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume there's got to be a way to do that, because that's what most people would want to drill into, right?
Yeah, that's a really common ask. Is that, yep, I want to see the detail. Let's have, what do we have? Full name. Where's their location? That's probably good enough. So the classic way to do it is, so if I have purchasing customer here, I'm going to create a table, and the typical way is you just drop the same measure in there as well. So I'm going to say purchasing customer account, or yeah, something like that, purchasing customer account. I can drop that there, and now it is gonna be filtered. So if I go, right now the table is showing me everybody, but if I go, oh, I only want to see folks who were there in January, now it's a much smaller list. And then I can say, oh, who bought in February? And of course, you know, you don't have to show this boring one number. You can hide that, you can do other tricks, you can show other information. It's like, what did they buy? So let's try. And that's how it's typically done, right? So you would say, customer, what are they buying? And I want to see how much are they buying. Sales. Oh, wow, where is sales? Oh. Ah, there it is. So does that make sense? I have a feeling there's maybe some complexity in yours where this may not work or may
Yeah,
not work
I'm not
well.
sure if I can try it. I think the complexity to measure itself, because it's not just a list of,
Well,
it's not just doing a countable list of customers, it's doing a lot of calculation. So it's doing a calculate table with a filter. And then it's
Yeah.
that results in that filter that it's doing a count of.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, as long as you're following kind of this structure, the data table, lookup table, then theoretically it doesn't matter how simple or complex the measure is.
All
But
right,
of
I'll
course,
try that.
if you kind of break the rules, which happens, right? So it's not like, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's, I'm sure, stuff that I've done I can't think of off the top of my head, but I ended up in the scenario where it's like, oh, I can't drag just the customer, it wouldn't show me. But we need to understand. So it's good to understand kind of the default, the best practice, so that when you have an exception, you can kind of zero in on that. It's like, oh yeah, it doesn't work because in our case, we don't have a relationship between the tables, or the formula has to deactivate the relationship, or something else, right? So once we understand the exception, we can kind of figure out. So that's one answer. There can be another answer. So the first answer would be do it the easy way. You know, kind of I just create a table with the same measure.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the measure itself is extremely complex. I mean, it's
Well,
looking
again,
at last transactions from
the
multiple tables.
complexity itself shouldn't have any bearing, right? I have written complex measures, really complex measures, right? The complexity of the measure itself has nothing to do with it, right? I mean, you can have 1,000 different steps in a calculation which works here, but you can still slice and dice it if you're following the rules, right? So I want to take that out. It's nothing to do with complexity. You can have 1,000-step measure, but it would still work because that is the default in Power BI. If you follow the rules, right? I mean, if you follow the structure, it always works. Defined ones used everywhere. That's the magic, right? That's the promised magic, right?
Yep.
So again, so complexity has nothing to do with it, but it is something else. So if you try it, if it works, great, right? But two things could happen. Either it's not going to work at all, or it's going to be very slow. I've seen both scenarios. But then we need to understand each one. Well, so of course, if it's 1,000-step measure, let's kind of exaggerate for a second, then very slow is often to be expected, and that is a challenge, right? So that does become a challenge. But then we understand that. Okay, cool, it works, but it's slow. So we kind of understand that. So again, right? I mean, peeling the onion, right? So we're going to go step by step. If it doesn't work, then we don't quite understand. Then we'll have to see, well, why doesn't it work? I mean, right? I mean, why can't I just drag that field? So again, I mean, some scenarios that I said was that in some cases, I don't create the relationship. I can't create the relationship. Sometimes I have to deactivate the relationship or some other thing, right? So, but again, if you understand it, then we can go take the next step. Complexity by itself isn't quite a determining factor. Now, the other path that I would suggest is that, of course, you can, I don't know what's the word, but you can do a calculate table, like, God, what is the, modeling, right? So instead of a new measure, you can do a new table with a calculate table formula. Frankly, I don't remember the last time I did that, and there is a good reason why. And here you can just stick the calculate table in there. So when you do a new measure, it has to be a single value. You cannot return a table in a measure. If you try, well, I mean, you have to do count rows. But when you do calculations new table, you can return a table. But why is it that I can't remember the last time I used it? It's because these, I think, are horrible. And I am shocked by how much it is abused, right? I'm sure there are some legitimate scenarios for using this, but it's just really abused. So for one, man, these are static. They don't have the magic of DAX. It's define once, use everywhere, right? Slice and dice it any which way you want. Nope, these are static. They don't change, right? Nothing you will do on the interface, nothing you will click, anything you will choose and slice it, they don't change. It's the most frustrating thing ever. People still use it. And if I say maybe you have a scenario where you're happy with a static table and all that stuff, but please, oh please, wouldn't it be better to do this in the kitchen? If you're gonna create a static table, man, do it where you have your gadgets and appliances. Do it in the kitchen of Power BI. Any single crazy thing that I've seen in this new table calculations. I've seen like DAX formulas which are pages long. Who has seen that or seen examples of that online, or maybe even written one of yours, right? And guys, just go the easy way. Do the kitchen of Power BI, because it's built for that, and there you can build it step by step. None of that crazy DAX monstrosity. And it's easy to debug, it's easy to maintain, it's easy to hand it off to somebody. If you're on vacation, they're not gonna call you and bug you or whatever, right? So it's got unbelievable advantages. So that's the reason that I haven't done it, but you could do it. You could. That is one path. I mean, if you like that, in a way, it's a simple answer. It's like, oh, calculate table. You want to return what the content of the table? Yep. Just go to modeling, calculations, new table, and just write the same formula, remove the count rows, and you're done.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do. But like I said, the formula is very complex.
But
I'll try it that way.
If you're wrapping count rows around it and it's returning an answer, if you remove the count rows, then new table should return the table. Yeah,
the only problem is it's coming from like 6 or 7 different tables.
Yeah, but
I'd have to go in and rewrite everything with related table, related.
But I don't understand. You already have the formula working. The only thing is you can't return the formula as is. You wrap it in a count rows. So my understanding was that you have some complex thing. You have count rows and then ... right?
Yes.
And this is a measure. Well, if you go calculation new table, then you shouldn't have to change anything, right? I mean, you would say calculation new table and just stick in the XYZ that's inside count rows.
Okay, let me try. That's what I was asking. So I can just do where do I do the calculation new table? Just inside of DAX?
So this is right here. So notice here, so modeling, right? And maybe let's just do a simple one. So we'll do new table, and let's actually do a quick one. Yeah, why not? All right, so notice here, and now I can say calculate table, and really anything that returns a table, right? Anything and everything goes, right? Calculate table, and let's do product and filter color equals red. And that
So I should be able to just remove the last count rows piece because I already have a calculate table that it does the count rows off of.
That's
And then
the
I should
idea.
be able to use that to create a new table.
That's the idea. Yeah.
All right, let me try that. That sounds, that's kind of what I was hoping it was. I thought it would be something that was simple because it's not like I need to do that every time. I just want to be able to validate that certain numbers match and be able to look at the differences between my numbers and theirs. So again, it calculates on the fly based off everything else in the measure.
Yeah.
But if I remove the count rows and just do the calculate table, then it sounds like I can just output the list of subscribers, and then I should be able to look at theirs and see who has active ones and doesn't, and then figure out the difference.
Yeah. So look at this table. So this is the one that we generated. Of course, I was very creative with naming it, but yeah, and of course, and you notice that obviously this guy is simple, so the color is red. That's the only filter. But again, doesn't matter what the expression is. Calculate table, whatever table it returns. If you did it this way, it's gonna just show the table to you. Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like you don't have the scenario which, right? I mean, like this, like you're not expecting your end users to use this. It seems like you're going to be using it for debug and all that stuff, and maybe then send them the table. Yeah, in that case, I think this should work just fine for you. I mean, your scenario doesn't have the challenges that I was talking about earlier, which mostly happens when I hand it off to somebody else and say, yep, you can use it any which way you want. You can create a report. So, yeah, cool. All right, so glad I was able to help.
Thank you.
Cool, awesome. So, hey, let's see if you have. So, Robert, I didn't want to keep you too long. Why don't we check in really quick? How have things been on YouTube? Was there somebody else? Maybe give me one question from somebody who posted it on YouTube. Let's
just quick, Avi. That works. Thank you.
Oh, great, awesome. So, Robert, pick your favorite from the folks who asked their question on YouTube. Let's do one of those at least.
So, there is John who is asking a Power Query question, and he asks whether you can merge records that meet a condition.
Oh. Yeah. All right. So, Robert, by the way, I mean, sometimes these calls go for long. You've already stayed here past an hour. If you need to bail, then yeah, put something in the chat, and that's gonna be perfectly okay. Yeah, don't feel like you have to stay till the end. All right, cool. Okay, so John, match records. Let's do it kind of quick. Match records. So actually, John, give me a little bit more context on that. Well, actually, John has a good point there. So advertisers Q&A. You know what, folks? I take it back. Maybe I'll tone down the rant. I'll just make him shorter. I don't think I needed to go on for God, I don't know how long I did. Yeah, I could have said that same thing much more quickly and succinctly, and save the story for maybe some of the other sessions we run when we just chat. So that's fair. And actually, John, man, I really appreciate how well you put that across, because clearly I didn't kind of get it the first time, and maybe that was just me. I'm just going to read it out loud because it was really nice. Really nice. Man, God, that's so good. So John said, this event was advertised as Talk Power BI Live Q&A. False advertising. More rants than Q&A. Yes, Avi's event, but my time is valuable. So yeah, that was kind of weird. In a way, man, that was a bit rude of me, of course. So apologies there. Yeah, I mean, it was, boy, I'm looking back, I'm like, how was I sounding? I was like, oh yeah, it was my way or the highway. Yeah, if I want to go on rants, I should just say, hey, this Friday we're gonna do what's the stuff that ticks Avi or something, and then it would be fair. So Spot on, mates. God, man, thank you so much. So I wouldn't go too much into it because, again, you said focused on Q&A. So, so Matthias, we kind of want to have a fair. So here's the thing. What we try to do is that imagine if you didn't pre-submit a question, and then well, let's see. So usually we try to do this. We would take one from the student, one from YouTube, and one live. Because otherwise, sometimes people join live and it's like, man, I wasn't able to submit, and I don't think you should be necessarily punished for that. So yeah, so we would pick kind of a live question as well, and sometimes a quick one or something. So so we would go round robin. So the last one was a student. I realized that I hadn't quite picked a live question at all since the beginning. So we're gonna pick one and then go to YouTube. So let's go here. So we got one from Dan as well. So let's see. So John is asking about matching records, but I do need more information. And it looks like John, I may have oh, wow. I really upset John, I think, if he was the guy asking the question. Unsubscribing from Avi's channel and blog. I think that was well deserved, my friends. So, I mean, of course, I don't want you to unsubscribe, but I can't believe what an idiot I turned into. But you know what? Let's put that behind us. There are better resources that are free and focused in Power BI, PowerBIPro, SQL BI. Ciao, ciao. So I'm so thankful for that. That I don't know, God, that's awesome. So I'm not sure if the John who asked the question is here. Matching records, yeah, I don't have enough to go on, unfortunately. I'll try my best. So I'll make up a scenario. So so there are two things. When somebody says, I want to match records, there are two things, right? So one is a merge and other is a complex matching condition. So you're going to enjoy this, all right? So let's go with this. And we will say how to match records in Power Query. John. Okay, so the first one is this guy, and actually I should probably put it here as well. Match records in Power Query, and that is John. So first is merge and the other is complex condition. Merge one is easy. All right, so customer, let's try to merge sales with customer maybe. Actually, I did that kind of here, customer sales. So I'm going to bring open a merge dialog, and this one is simple. I'm saying I want to merge this table with this table, which is basically a match, right? That's what it is, right? And I want to match it based on this column and this column. So that's the simplest of merge. Now, of course, you can match it based on multiple columns. You can say, oh, the customer key needs to match as well as full name and maybe something else, right? Or so you have, customer key matches and the order date and ship date, right? So you can have complex, slightly complex conditions. So matching on multiple columns. And of course, you have options here as well, which is how do you want to match? And say, hey, I only want to keep matching from second, matching from first, all the rows from both, all of that, right? So that's the step one. That's a simple matching. But sometimes you can't do that. You can't do that. And actually, one of the earlier questions that came in, which was this one from Evan, is a connection. So imagine on one side, you had a calendar table which had dates. So it had January 1, January 2, January 3, and so on. And the other side, we had, the car charging time or something like that. So employee table, which had kind of a start date and end date. And let's say, whatever, January 10 to February 13th, something like that, right? So now I wanna match, and I wanna say that in this date, was this person active? Now and then I want to see this date, was this person active? It's matching, but you can't do it using a merge. You cannot do it using a merge. And that's where you would use kind of a complex condition, which is typically kind of a custom column where you would say, oh, test this. And you would say, if this is greater than this, right, between start date and end date, then give me true, and then filter it down to true. Yeah, so cool. So that was John's question. So let's go back. I guess we've done a student. We have done a live. Let's see. Evan, we did answer. YouTube live. So John, we did answer. And YouTube. So let's go to Matthias. Matthias, thank you so much for your patience. And hey, you were totally fair in asking that, my friend. Actually, it was my bad. I should have announced this at the beginning and been more particular about it, because I realized that I was kind of hopping around a little bit. So, so now, of course, we're kind of out of order, but we'll get back on track here. So next up is definitely, we have just handled a question from student. We've handled a question from live. So next up is Matthias. And let me find your question, my friend. Oh, man. I will say, folks, while I'm bringing it up, all right, no rant, is I feel so lucky. And that's what I love about what I do, is that I have so many folks to learn from, right? My students, my followers, and sometimes this learning is not Boolean. It's not black or white. It's like going to the gym. Some lessons we need to learn. Yeah, again, going to the gym. And again, I feel so lucky that I was reminded of one of those lessons today by you guys. Gosh. So beautiful, so lucky. All right, so analyzing data cubes. Love it, love it, love it. Ooh, if I think I know where it's going. Oh, by the way, so folks, if you're just joining, I learned a lesson in humility, or relearned a lesson, I hope. Yeah, so yeah, analyzing data cubes. So let's see. And of course, I need to put that in here. And yeah, there's a term that I love, which is servant leader. And of course, the variation that I love is called servant teacher. And I certainly didn't quite act like that earlier today, did I? All right, I'm here to serve you guys. Analyzing data cubes, and I need best practices to reading and analyzing data cubes. Example, Google Analytics consisting of dimensions and measures. Would you transform it into a tabular model in PBIX? Can you outline a way to do so? This is a great question, and this one immediately gets a gold star. So folks, gold star, let's go back to that. This one is awarded in questions which are a real business scenario. I frankly have no love for a hypothetical question, so sorry. And it seems simple, but isn't. Oh yeah, and this one definitely fits that criteria. So let's go here and put that gold star on there, my friends, because it is well deserved. Okay, great. So let's say, let's first make sure, and again, I want to bring everybody kind of on board. So folks, if you have no idea what a data cube is, Well, actually, I don't know if I can explain it. So I'm going to do a quick version. All right. So quick version, probably get it wrong. Actually, you know what? I can do the quick version. So imagine usually data is stored in databases in tables, which look like this stuff, right? So it's a table and it's a flat two-dimensional space, right? I mean, tables, columns, you can see it in two dimension. But data cube technology is not new. I don't know, it's like 20 plus years old or something. Right? It's pretty old, pretty mature, really powerful. And what this does is it can store information in a cube. And it does so imagine if you have this one, right? So sales by kind of the date and the customer key and the sales amount there, right? But it creates a third kind of dimension in the cube, which would maybe have month on there. And then it can pre-aggregate and it can be really, really fast in giving you answers. So you can have 100 million, billion, trillion rows, but if you ask, show me the sales by month, the answer is really quick because guess what? It's been aggregated already at the cube edges. Again, you don't need to understand the technology itself, but it can give you really quick answers with even very large data sets. So now, of course, these cubes are not really three-dimensionals. These are multi-dimensionals, like many, many, many. Now, of course, we can't, at least I can't, envision a multi-dimensional cube, like fourth dimension. We can't. I can't, So yeah, but if you understand in 3D, you understand the concept. So that's the data cube technology. It's really old, and the first time you've been using it possibly without even realizing it. And usually what is it called? So now it's called SSAS multi-dimensional. Can I spell it? No, I can't. Yeah, this is what it's called. Now, it's been renamed because earlier it was just SSAS, SQL Server Analysis Services, and that was a cube technology. It's been renamed because now there are two versions of this. There is SSAS multidimensional and SSAS tabular. Now, here's the thing. Power BI. Now, if you think about it, guys, sometimes success seems immediate. Overnight success, right? And it's like, man, how did that happen? But sometimes it's an overnight success, 20 years in the making. And that's the story of Power BI. That's the story of Power BI. Why is it so awesome? Because it's not a new tool. It's been built upon a technology which is very mature, but they did some things to it. They made it accessible. They made it business user friendly. They did awesome things to it, and I'm glad they did because that's the only reason I was able to step into it, right? So Power BI is actually a cube. That technology is a cube. It is, right? So there is little difference between any of these. And of course, SSAS is by Microsoft, SQL Server Analysis Services, but there are lots of other vendors out there, Oracle, SAP, I don't know, so many, right? So they all do cubes, essentially the same technology. And Power BI, again, is essentially the same technology. What does that mean? That, frankly, makes it challenging to work with cubes in Power BI, right? Because cubes are generally, the default for Power BI is not to work with cubes because, again, it itself is a cube. It itself is a cube technology. So the default is to work with, I would say, flat 2D data sources, right? Tables, essentially, right? And this could be coming from database systems. These could be coming from CSV files, Excel tables, doesn't matter, right? So the default is this, which actually makes working with cube really challenging. Well, not really challenging, but it's challenging. And for one, you have a decision to make. So the decision is this, is that you can use Power BI as like a live connection to a cube, right? So you go to here, and actually I wouldn't, I'll have to start a new file. Maybe I would, but you can use a live connection to a cube. What that does is that it makes Power BI basically a reporting layer only, reporting or visualization layer. Because again, the cube is already there. So I'm saying, well, why would I recreate a cube? It's a lot of work, a lot of work. So that is one option. The other option is, oh man, you take the cube and you import it into Power BI. Now, I'll admit that this import isn't fun. I mean, when you're working with tables, it's straightforward. It's the cube. It's a little bit kind of funky, and can often be slow. Because think about the cube technology, right? So it can take 1 billion trillion rows and summarize, like, so you can take 1 trillion rows and say, show me sales by month. It can take that vast amount of data and summarize it really quick. But when we try to import a cube, we're asking the cube to do something which is totally opposite of its nature. It takes huge amounts of data and summarizes it really quick. It's hard for it to do the opposite. You're saying, oh yeah, you showed me we have $20 million in sales last year. Give me all the records for it. And you're going to find out it can really slow down. Now, there are some techniques you can use. You can, instead of building it as a pivot, I wouldn't explain it, but if you understand it, if you know what I'm talking about, you'll get it. Instead of building a pivot, you would use a query. And of course, the cube query language is either DAX or MDX. I'm not smart enough to write MDX. I'm glad the most cubes talk in DAX as well. Certainly the Microsoft SSAS, both of them. Even the multidimensional one, it can understand DAX. It can work in DAX, right? So it's slow. You can improve things a little bit by, instead of kind of building it like a pivot, which is what we often do when we are expanding the table, we just kind of drag the field. You just issue a query. That can speed it up. There was another thing. Cube import Power BI. So it's often slow and not fun, right? So yeah, you'll notice. So those are the challenges there. What is the advantage of this? The advantage of this is that you get full control. Man, so I'm a Power BI author, right? I'm a Power BI modeler. What's my bread and butter? My bread and butter is the stuff under the hood. The model here, I want to control it. The query editor, I want to control that. So I have full control over that. So I can bring in additional tables, I can define my own calculations, all of that. But the disadvantage is that, man, you're kind of, you're not only the disadvantages that we listed earlier, but man, you're recreating everything, right? In a way, you are reinventing the wheel. A lot of the work that has been done in the cube, you kind of have to do it again. So that is challenging. But again, if you want full control, well, you're going to get full control. Now, here is what I love about Power BI. Love it. Man, these guys are awesome. And my rant aside, these guys are brilliant. And they are doing things to serve the business users. And so they understand the scenario. They understand that business users often, are faced with this tough choice. Either consume the cube as is, or if they want to change something in the cube, they don't want full control, they want just a little bit of control, right? They have to go this route. It's an impossible choice. So they gave us a third choice. Thank you, Microsoft. Thank you, Microsoft Power BI. And what they do is that when you create a live connection to a cube, you can create your own measures. And frankly, that's often all that we want. Right? I mean, often IT gave me a cube and they were smart people kind of there building these cubes, doing a lot of heavy lifting. They had done all of that. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I just wanted, hey, can you do this and take this and add this and divide this by this and all of that? Well, now you don't have to go to IT for that. And well, they do have their development cycle. And, yeah, I do throw them under the bus, but hey, they have development cycles for a reason. Because they can't just make changes on the fly and have it break for 10,000 users who are possibly using the cube. So now you got the best of both worlds. You don't have to wait for IT. You can connect to the cube and then just, if you need like a few changes in this and like, oh, I just want to do it this way, you can create your own measures. So it's going to take the cube, everything that is, and then layer your measures on top. Now, what would be crazy, and frankly, I don't even know if this feature is already there. Maybe it's there. I don't always stay up to date on the Power BI updates. Imagine if you could add your own tables. Oh man, that would be the holy grail. Guys, that would, this friction, this war, friction, let's call it friction, right? This friction between IT and business. I think that could solve it. I think that could be the holy grail. So folks, help me out. Like if you know, like if somebody knows, I missed the news. If this ability is now there, that would be insanity. That would like change everything. That would change everything forever. And if it's not there, I say we put in a request. What is it called? The ideas@powerbi.com and vote on it. Because I hope you realize how big that is, right? I mean, if you're talking about the scrappy underdog, the team that this is about empowering them, Power BI team has already done something really amazing. I don't know if any other BI tool which does this. It's awesome. This would take us home. Cool. So Matthias, well, yeah, hopefully that guided you a little bit. Just to be clear though, it's not direct query. It is live connection, as long as I'm right. Direct query is used, the term is used when connecting to databases, two-dimensional. I'm not, like, frankly, for me, they're similar, but I know Power BI team made a distinction. They called it different things. I'm not sure, yeah, but that's where it is, right? So cubes, it's a live connection. All right, hey, that was good. So I know there's a little bit of a lag, but if there is any other follow-up there, let me know. All right, cool. So again, folks, we are trying to go kind of in order here. So we do one student question, one YouTube pre-submit, one live, and now we're back to the Learn Power BI pre-submit. So let's go here. And I know, guys, these sometimes go on, but again, hopefully you enjoy other questions too. So Kirk, I do see you online. Let's see if you can take on your question.
So, good afternoon. What I've got is I've got a couple tables, and the one that is causing me the most amount of grief is the order table, because the order table has a variety of dates in it. When the order was placed, when it's due, when it was shipped, etc. And there are times when I want to use multiple dates in a chart or graph, all at the same time. The example I put in there is just a pretty simple one where you've got, I want to be able to look at total sales, both by the month it was ordered, rows, and when it's actually due to ship by columns. And how do I do that? When I try to connect those dates to the calendar dim, it doesn't let me have multiple connections.
Yeah. So have you gone through? So this one, oh, I'm actually, well, I'm really happy that this is so close to the example that we have, because that's the pattern that we have in AdventureWorks, where it has order date and ship date. And let me bring it up. Let's go relationships. Oh, is that what? Oh, okay. So you want to show them kind of side by side, right? So this is, we have a, oops. So you can solve it using DAX, which lets you do things like this, right? So you can say, oh, so this sales is by order date, and then you can say, oh, I want it by ship date. Or you can do it using a copy of a table, which is, you kind of create multiple calendars. Each has its pros and cons. I'm feeling like the first approach is the right one for you. And really, as you said, it doesn't let you activate multiple relationships at a time, but DAX can easily fix that. So if you want to use a specific relationship for that calculation, you just activate it using this pattern. Does that help? Do you think
it does help? Mm-hmm. But that would be switching back and forth, right? So if I want them both active in, so for instance, what we're sort of looking for is, I'm trying to figure out what open orders we have over the next 6 months. But in addition to when they're due by month, so how much volume we've got by month, I also want to be able to see when they were added. So how much is left out there for stuff that we ordered in January?
Yeah.
So how much of January's is due still in March and April?
Yeah. So, there is an orange in this cart of apples. So let's, let me point it out. So this is an apple. So this is, I'm imagining there's a due date field here.
Yep.
Right, so due date field here. And again, if we go look at our thing, you can show it at the same time. You can even do calculations across it, right? So you can say, so ignore sales, imagine that is like orders, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So that orders, and of course, orders is probably should be like count rows of a table, so simple measure. And so you can say, oh, orders by, kind of due date. Orders by, something else date. And that one is straightforward. So the apples, we should, when they were added, like added date, right? So whatever date field there is, you can write a measure to activate that date field and kind of get that answer. Oops, sorry, wrong place. Right, so yeah, using that use relationship pattern. Let's see if we can. Oh yeah, great. Oh, there we go. And again, so this is right inside the course, module 3. But look at the last 2 lessons. And again, I strongly feel like there is another approach. But yeah, I feel. You can watch both of them, but I'm pretty sure the first one is what applies in your case. So the apples we can handle, but man, this one is an orange because there is no open order date. Like, can I say, is there like there's no, right? I mean, am I understanding it right? What open orders we have? That's not the same question. Am I making sense? Like, I mean, that's a different question. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, that's a different question, and I'm okay with that one. That one I've sort of been able to work through. The trickier part is when you go back to your table.
Mm-hmm.
Is you show there how much we added in January and how much we shipped in January.
Yeah.
But how much of what we added in January did we ship in January?
Yeah, but yeah, I just, so again, that is another orange.
Yes.
You got a few oranges in the cart. And right, because the apples are the simple question which can be answered based on one column.
Yep.
But the oranges are where you can't answer that based on one column. So I mean, we have order, and we have so you have order date, right? And ship date, right?
Yep.
Good so far. And so we can say, so kind of our Apple question is, show me orders, me orders by order month, right? Order date, really, right? Something like that. So that one is an Apple. And of course, you can ask endless variation of apples. That one is simple, using the pattern that we just showed. But when you put an orange in there, so now you're saying of the orders placed in January 2020, how many were shipped in January 2020? Am I kind of getting your question right?
Yes. And then in February, March, etc. and stuff across
so of course,
so that I've got layers.
Yeah. So of course, for this one, this is tricky because you cannot answer just based on one column. All of these questions were apples and easy because we just had to look at one column. So this one is very interesting. Let's see if we can dive into this one.
And if I were in Excel, it's really easy to pivot the order date in rows and the due date in columns. So in Excel, it's straightforward. And then my measure is just sum of sales.
Really?
And that gives you sort of a stepped chart.
So tell me, I'm not sure it's gonna help me with Power BI, but I'm really curious. Like, tell me.
Do you have access to the pic I put in that shared folder or not?
Oh yeah.
Or can I show mine? Either one.
Oh yeah, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what it sort of looks like.
Oh, got it. Yeah, this is good. Yeah. That's a good way to solve it, I guess.
So I could have a copy of the calendar table, and then it would let me do it. The only are all of the calendar functions available, like year to date and stuff like that, if you have a copy of the calendar? I don't know that I need year to date, but nevertheless, I didn't know if I just copied it, if it still had all of those features.
It has everything. The challenge with creating another calendar table is you need a whole new set of measures. And again, the video kind of talks about that. But yeah, everything is available. So what you showed, I think is, so earlier I was I was saying that you know, the two patterns, and I was like, oh, this is the right one. But of course, the you know, the one that you just described, this is exactly that. I think let me just try it. Gosh, this I mean, in my mind I see it working, but I think it'll be pretty cool to just kind of see it in action too. So if I go to my sales and let's add the sales measure. Oh, God, not service size. Okay, so we have that, and in here I'm gonna bring in, let's see if I have order line item count. Let's do that. Oh, actually, yeah, instead of sales, maybe account. I'll just focus on that. So 5889, and on one axis I'm gonna have the order date, and that works. And on another axis I'm gonna put the ship date. Oops. Sort by column. Yeah, so I think the two.
That's cool. Okay, so I just
approach.
make a copy of my ship calendar, and there's not and that's a little bit what we want it to look like. Our lead times can be quite a bit longer and stuff, and so it helps to know as our backlog grows, is it because of new business or because we're not shipping out old business?
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, so this is certainly going to help you.
Okay.
But there's another level here, which is to be able to do that with the DAX measure. Imagine you had a DAX measure which gave you a percentage, right?
Okay.
Percentage of orders that were shipped in the same month as they were ordered. And again, I mean, it may or may not be relevant, but just, and man, because once you have a measure, you can slice and dice it. You can trend it over time, and you can see that as a trend kind of going up and down. And then you can slice and dice it by, oh, what about this manufacturing plant or this customer category or this color product, whatever, right? I mean, obviously, I'm coming up with poor examples, but, and see that and contrast as, oh, look at that, right? So that could be something really cool. But you need a little bit of DAX for that, right? For this one, I mean, we didn't have to write any DAX, but this is a normal solution. I like it. This is, I didn't, yeah, I mean, it feels silly now that I didn't think about it this way. But that could be cool too. So I'll say, yeah, try this out, and then.
And for that one right there, that calculation would be as simple as if I have the total, and then I simply take the percentage of what was in that column. Obviously, you got to figure that out, but it really.
Yeah. So for that, interestingly, so we're going back and forth, you would have to go back to this pattern.
Okay.
Using DAX. So, man, this is a great example. I know in my mind I showed the two things, but then I don't think I mentioned it in the lesson, but part of me was like, there are going to be scenarios where you use both, not just one. In here, I talk about choosing and I talk about pros and cons, but part of me was like, man, there will be scenarios when you would need both. But at that point, it seemed too bizarre. But now we have a real example. So, so for that one, you're gonna go back to DAX because that would give you, let's go to the table here. yeah, I mean, that would give you kind of for a given month and year, it would give you like you know, the order count. It'll give you the shipped count, and then of course it becomes just, you know, you calculate the percentage using this and this, right? So so yeah, so that would go back to the DAX approach. Boy, this is really good. Hey, thanks for bringing this up. I can't believe you're.
Thank you.
Yeah, we this definitely gets a gold star, and we have 2 in a row. Yeah, and I'm gonna write something here. So scenario using that was really good. All right, great, Girk. Thank you so much for that question.
Thank you.
All right, folks. So we just covered Dan. Oh, not Dan. Girk. So if I missed any student, and I did miss a few messages here, if you let me check them. Ah, interesting. So Kirk shared that Burst is a BI tool that allows users to add table to the corp model. That's what we need. That's what we need. They call it networked analytics. Okay, Ninke also had a question, but Ninke did have to leave. But let's see. So actually, I'm not keeping great track here. So Branislav, hey, if you're still on, put that in the chat window. So folks, again, we're gonna try to go through one question from students, one question pre-submitted from a YouTube audience, and one just a live question. You can ask anything, and then we're gonna kind of loop again. So we just handle a student question. So YouTube, what I had was Branislav, if you are on, then just put that in the chat. And otherwise, if you did pre-submit a question, just put that in there. All right. So meanwhile, I'm going to look through some of the comments here. Where can I find this file saved? Yeah, we used to make it available to everybody, but now, sorry, I don't know if it should be set up this way, but I can point you, if you're a student in the program, then the same place where you click to join this call has links to the files. And actually, having said that, I should probably save this file somewhere in that folder. So yeah, where is that? The same place where you go, this one, where to join the call. There's a link to join the call, and at the bottom we have links to my Word document. So this is my Word document, you see, and that is the link to the files. But that does require me to save this file, which I should do so right now. Yeah, there we go. Wait, no, Doc PowerBI 2020, and I don't really know what we did today in this file. I think order date, ship date is the only interesting example we did. All right. Oh, great. Personal master. Yep. So yeah, go to the. Actually, I'll put the link here. It says special pass. Ooh. So yeah, folks. So for students, and I have heard of some students who would go through the notes here and go through all these the gold star questions and go back and watch them. Now, of course, what we're trying to do is we're trying to compile all of them in the library, so if somebody doesn't have to hunt through this and then go find it in the recording, and just compile it all together, all the good stuff from Talk Power BI. That's a project for 2021, hopefully early 2021. Yeah. All right. For students, I do want to say that maybe a quick update for students. So, folks, we are, I was working through updating the modules. We had to pause that a little bit, but I plan to come back to that in December. Modules 3, 4, 5 have been updated. 5 and 6 are going to be updated in December. Module 1 was the newest one to begin with. We're hoping we can get away with Module 1 with minor changes. So that's why I've left that to the last, which has been slightly awkward because it's also the first thing people start with, and again, it's relatively recent than kind of Module 5 and 6. But anyway, so Module 1 will probably have a quick solution in place, which actually Monse is helping me with. Thank you, Monse. So that's the plan for 1, but 5 and 6 we're going to update in December. That's the plan. And of course, we're looking forward to launching not 1, but 2 programs next year. One is the consultant program that's opening in January. We're excited about that. And my goal and mission has always been to change people's lives. Yep, nothing short. And initially I was convinced that learning Power BI can do that. I used to think that that's what changed my life. But then I realized that that wasn't quite accurate. It's one ingredient. So yeah, this whole journey has been, we've been doing this for the past 2 years, running this program, and it's been an exploration together with this group, with this amazing group, of what are the factors. And yeah, there's some things, yep, so that's that. And we have a 5-step journey, which we take them through. And yeah, that's been really amazing. So that one is opening January 2021. And the other program, this one is going to be brand new. It's going to be a beta. And I'm always excited about beta. Every single one of my programs were launched as a beta. The Learn Power BI main course, this Power BI Consultant program was launched as a beta. And betas can be fun because, yeah, they're definitely rough around the edges. In fact, usually when I do beta, I have nothing in there. There's like 0 content. And that was certainly true for both the Learn Power BI program and even this program. There was nothing there. But the exciting part is that we create it together. You get to create it. We get to create it together. So we're going to recruit our beta members and kick this off. And again, beta means a lot of things. I mean, we feel like we have a big vision, but we may be wrong. Who knows? And of course, you've heard me talk about it. I mean, I always believe in kind of agile. So that's why we want to do a beta to figure it out, right? And of course, this program has been tweaked over the past 2 years, and we're still tweaking it because we're always learning from our experiences, from our students. So the Power BI Pioneer is for the organizational leader, somebody who's championing, who's kind of pioneering Power BI within the organization. And when I use the word leader, I want to make sure that I clarify that leadership has nothing to do with title. I know there are members inside our program who exactly fit this profile, who are CEOs and CFOs, but there are also members who work in the call center. And I don't think it matters. I think leadership is more about kind of stepping up, right? So so those are the folks we want to help. And again, I kind of believe in that too. If you've heard my story, I struggled with that. I almost lost my job over trying to champion or pioneer Power BI within my company called Microsoft. Sounds bizarre, right? But that was that was true back then. Things have changed, certainly, quite a bit. Yeah. Thanks to Satya. I think Satya was big on all of Microsoft starting to use Power BI. Okay, cool. So, all right. So what we're going to do is, sorry, I lost my place again, was, oh gosh, let me...
Sure, but first you'll have to unlock your device.
Oh, sorry, my Google thing gets activated. So we were going to do a question from YouTube pre-submitted, but I didn't see. So Branislav, I think you were in and out and maybe you had to leave again. We'll see if you can get back to your question. Folks, if you had any question on YouTube, then type it in. And if you typed in earlier, then, sorry, you're going to have to put it in again. Actually, I see Maria as well had posted a question, but folks, generally we request that you are live. So if Branislav, Maria, if you're live, then post a message again. I'll come back and check that. Meanwhile, we'll see if we can help Ninke, one of our Learn Power BI students. Okay, so let me go find the question. Where did I go? All right, there we go. Okay, got that. Oh, I did need that search. Is it possible? Oh, let me cue it up. Calculate a year-to-date count based on a slicer, even if a subject has no records. Yeah, that's... I'm hoping he has a file attached, because otherwise it will be hard for me to get the context. All right, cool. Okay, so let's see what the details. Oh gosh, so no file, but let's see. I want to make an estimation of the year-end results based on the amount year to date. I want to do this by category, but not every category has a result in the given month. For example, category 1 has results in January till September. Only as results of January, March, and May. For both categories, I still want the year estimate based on 274 days, which have passed this year. Extra complication, I have a slicer with the month in it, and if one selects, for example, January till April, I want the calculation based on the days for those months. So the calculation depends on the slicer. Actually, this is good enough detail that I can at least give you know, some sort of an answer. Now, so usually, folks, I mean, the more you help us help you, the easier it is for us to help you. That, what am I saying? What I'm trying to say is that if you do provide like an Excel file, or ideally even a Power BI file with some sample data, kind of get us going, then it's so much easier. If I had a kind of a Power BI file right away with this data set and all this stuff, I might have even, kind of gone in and just written out the DAX formula. In fact, sometimes that is easier than trying to explain it. But without it, it becomes a little tricky. But again, I think I understand the question. So let's see what are the criteria here, and we're going to separate these. So there is one scenario where it seems he wants to do year to date based on current date, today's date. Let's go with that, right? So let's say we have measure 1, which figures out the end date, last date, year and date, whatever, right? And this one you can, how would you figure out what is today's date? I think there's a DAX function you can use today or something like that. That is okay. That might work. And of course, you can do -1 or something like that to get yesterday or date diff. There is something there which you can calculate. So I'm pretty sure. Actually, maybe I should look it up. Okay, so DAX today's date. What is the function? Oh, it is today. Okay, cool. Yeah, so today all right, so that is one option. An advanced option is going to be based on last date in your data set. And again, this is well more advanced than this, but the logic behind this, that imagine today is November 27th. Today is November 27th, but I only have data till November 4th, right? Then I don't want to base my calculations off of November 27th, because I know that I just don't have any data. Let's say there's like a 2-week delay in me getting the data, right? So again, I'm slightly exaggerating a little bit, but of course, there can be scenarios, right? So you figure out the end date, that this is the end date, and then you say, what is the sales year to date? And that one, ooh, that's interesting. So actually, this is good. So instead of using so regularly, you would say calculate. Actually, you didn't need the end date. I didn't realize that. You would say calculate, and you would say, give me the sales. And you would just use dates year to date. Ooh, calendar date. Right, so that's the classic way to do it. But in this case, I think we'll be better off using the end date function instead of the built-in dates year to date. Let's go with that. So again, I'm feeling it, but I haven't analyzed it 100%. But so this is what we call a decision point. And folks, I've talked about it in the YouTube lives. And folks, we'll wrap up. This seems like a good question to wrap up things on. So we'll call it a day here. So decision points are a key step in modeling. There's some other ones. There's assumption, and there are a few others there. But so this is a decision point where, but again, I mean, so I realized that I could do it. Yeah, I mean, we could keep it this way, but I'm feeling like we should change. And right now, it's a gut feel. It's okay. I often make gut feel decisions, but as long as you recognize that this was a decision point and I made this decision, and if it doesn't work out, then I know that I can backtrack to this point, right? Hopefully that made sense. So right now, and sometimes you do stop. If it's a bigger decision, then I don't go by my gut, then I weigh the pros and cons. I try to play it out. Like if I go this way, what's going to happen, and so forth. Kind of like a chess move, right? So yeah, but for now, I'm just going to go with gut. So I'll say, how can we do sales year to date without that? So well, we can say calculate sales, and then we're not using time intelligence functions, so we're gonna say filter all the calendar table, right? So remove all filters, and then I want to say I want the current year, so I'm gonna say calendar. Yeah, so we'll use some variables. So we'll see var current year is equals to selected value calendar year. And if you realize there's a mini assumption here that only one year can be selected. What if they select June 2018 to February 2019? I don't know. It probably wouldn't work, but again, right? I mean, is it elegant? Is it not elegant? Do I need to handle that situation? So again, this is a decision point too, and again, I've chosen not to handle that right now. I'm going to worry about that later. All right, so and again, you can call it out if you need to. It's like, oh, cool, this is the assumption that I'm making. Decision points and assumptions are kind of the same thing. Frankly, anytime you're making some assumptions about it, that is also a decision point. All right, so selected value, so I got the year, and then I'm going to say calculate sales where calendar year is this one, the current year, or maybe I'll just call it selected. And usually I've been starting my formula variables with V, just so I always know. I know it visually it puts in a different color, but still I want to know which one is a variable versus a measure. So give me for that year, but I don't want the full year, only up till this end date. So then I say calendar, and folks, in one of my videos I talk about like the missing step, and I really feel, so a bit of a side detour, but let's see how this works. Missing step. Oh shoot, that's not it. PowerBIPro. Yeah, there we go. I think the missing step is a thought process. In my last video, I had talked about the key, like how do you solve steps you need to follow to master Power. So again, we're just gonna spend 2 minutes here, but think about where do you get stuck. And what I saw was that people, if you have seen something like this in a lesson, in a tutorial, or if you can Google it and find something just like what you're trying to solve, you're never going to be stuck, right? People are never stuck in that, but they're always stuck. Where are they stuck? They're stuck in something that is novel, that's slightly different, which is not exactly like what Avi teaches in the course, which is not exactly like how I covered in the video. It's just different enough that it feels similar, and feel like, gosh, I can get it, and I see there's an article there, there's lots of Google articles on there, so but you can't solve it. And of course, that happens all the time with real data. So what's that missing link? It's the thought process. So again, I mean, you've seen me do this, so I'm going to think out loud, just so you can kind of see the thought process, what's going on. So again, so calculate sales filter. I cleared all filters, all calendar, and then I said it is selected year, but then I don't want to go beyond the end date. So I'm going to say calendar date is less than or equal to the end date measure. And yeah, that's okay. So now I have a new sales year to date measure, and this should work, and this should work for other scenario as well. So the other scenario was that user picks a date range from a slicer, right? So example, they can say, yep, I want January through April. Well, then the only thing that needs to change is that obviously you cannot have end date as today. You're going to have something in there. Now, again, this is a decision point as well. So what you can do is you can have the same measure and have it be smarter. It's like if nothing is selected in slicer, then today, right? If nothing is selected in slicer, then today, else, so let's do this. Obviously, I'm not writing in DAX, but you would write in DAX. If nothing is selected in slicer, then today, else, give me the max date selected by slicer. And yeah, gosh, and again, if you realize, I paused here a little bit because I realized, well, what about the minimum date? And that goes back to our assumption here, where I said that they're selecting a single year. So I don't know. I mean, if that assumption holds, then this is good. But if it doesn't hold, or can they select part of the year? Can they select like April through June? I don't know. So since we don't have Ninka here, I wouldn't quite explore that. But again, you can call those out and say these are the assumptions in my model, and I've gone with those assumptions and made these decisions. If those assumptions change, then you're gonna have to revisit that. But so assuming that people don't do any funky things, they're just selecting from January to that, then yeah, you just do this, and that's it. So yeah, okay, we made it. So hopefully that helps. And I didn't see any new comments on YouTube, and hopefully everybody is doing good on the Learn Power BI. So I guess we'll call it a day. We'll see you next week, Friday. Talk Power BI. All right, power on, my friends.